Hey guys, welcome to Rockin' Out with yours truly, J Rock. And today we're going to talk about episode 7. This is where I get to share my thoughts, my opinions on the subject and content that we displayed in episode 7 of Distorted Realities live stream. First and foremost, we want to thank all the viewers who participated. We want to give a special thanks to Sam, who we'll talk more about later during the interview. And yeah, it was a great episode. But before I begin, I really want to talk about some news and some updates that we have for you. First and foremost, if you are a fan of the show and you have people who are interested in the same kind of stuff that we're producing, please be sure to have them hit like and subscribe and watch the shows. Super important that they participate, engage, watch the show, give feedback, comment, and join the chat. Next up, we now have a website. So the website is https thedistortedrealities.com. Again, https://thedistortedrealities.com. Now the site is not complete. Bear in mind that it's a work in progress. It's a lot of work that gets put into these things. And essentially you have the main page, an about us page, and all the links to all our resources: TikTok, Instagram, the merch store, and our email, which is the next line item I want to talk about. So given our recent experience with the show and doing the interviews, we received a lot of positive feedback and callbacks from individuals that we knew about people who know people, right, that want to be able to participate in the show and tell their stories. And we love that. But we need to be very methodical in how we approach this. Make sure not everyone just gets on the call. So we got an email, and the email is the following: contact@thedistortedrealities.com. There you can send an email, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about the story you want to talk about. If it's in line with the live stream, we could definitely pencil you in. We'll make it so. If not, we're going to host the podcast every 2 weeks where you can just call in and tell your story. You'll be given a fixed amount of time, but make sure you send the email first about your interest in telling your story. All right. Most importantly is our merch store. At present, we now have a Printify shop store where we make our own merchandise, and we've been selling products. So those of you who've made purchases, thank you so much. We really hope you like what we've created in terms of the shirts, the socks. We even have coffee. So when you get a chance, you can go to https://distorted-realities-shop.printify.me/products. All right, that's enough of that. Let's talk about episode 7. And it was one of the most interesting, heartfelt episodes for me. As you already know, Distorted Realities is a brand new show. Me and Frank Walls came up with this brilliant idea of, we love this stuff, right? We like the obscure, the weird, monsters and fantasy and things of that nature. And we started off just by doing it, really, and from there we started creating, kind of like a roadmap of how we envision this. And with every episode that passes, I think we've made improvements. We heard the audience. We've kind of restructured things around it, and it's starting to bear fruit, right? And most importantly, it's because of you, the viewer, right? And episode 7 was like the culmination of the pilot episode and the other 6 episodes where we had our first interview. But not only that, we kind of like solidified the structure a bit where things can be more fluid, more seamless. We're getting more comfortable. But yeah, we could start off with the cryptid. And I think the first one that we spoke about was El Coco, right? Now, what made it so interesting is that El Coco is originated in Colombia, right? And its description, or the name, is because of its features. It's brown and hairy, and it's similar to what a coconut would look like in terms of those features. Little did we know that there was a lot of tales surrounding El Coco and how it transcended across other Latin cultures, right? Us in Puerto Rico, the folks in Puerto Rico call it El Cuco. Other places call it El Cucuy, right? But what I liked about it the most is how this particular cryptid transcended, right, from being El Coco to now becoming a legendary creature that we know in America as the boogeyman. So it gave birth to this new entity, and I thought that was amazing. Whoa, who would have thought, right, that it came out of something different? It didn't have an origin story. The boogeyman didn't have an origin story. It was actually El Coco was the origin story as it results. And then we jumped into the Hat Man. This is when my head started kind of like going off the deep end, because I couldn't make much of it, right? I didn't know if it was a poltergeist, a ghost, a cryptid, some kind of entity that couldn't be described, a multi-dimensional being. And but it struck a chord with me because there are things that sometimes we can't explain. You have ghosts and all sort of paranormal equivalent, I would say, entities that tend to have the makeup of it, but doesn't really fit that grouping, right? And that's what the Hat Man is. Here's a shadow entity that has the capability to go into your dreams. So I figured this is like some Freddy Krueger stuff, right? But then I realized, well, this hasn't been reported to result in any deaths or anything like that, but it does have it has been reported by people who've experienced it that there are some strange and unnerving situations where people kind of lose themselves in the process, get depressed, have attempted to unalive themselves and things of that nature. So we dug deep, and then we ran into someone named Sam. And Sam reportedly, as she stated, she had encounters with the Hat Man. And Frank and I said, hey, this will be a great segue to a good call, and have her share her experiences. And of course, we kept it anonymous, so we used Sam as the name, but we don't want to provide any of those details. The important piece was for someone to share their story in an environment where they felt safe, they felt comfortable, and that they felt they were being heard, right? I think that was the goal for the episode, and I think we nailed it, honestly. So a little bit about the situation. I mean, when Sam spoke, right, I felt that she was revisiting the past, and she was putting herself out there, just being her truest self and telling her truth. And I felt every word she said, and that was, that takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage, a lot of soul searching, if you will, to put yourself out there to tell something you might not want to talk about. And I can't be thankful enough to Stan. It really kind of set the tone for what the future can potentially look like, for the show, and not just for the show, but for the people who we encourage to participate. There's no right or wrong. There's no rhyme or reason. There just is. You're here for the show because you will have something amazing you want to share with us, and you're part of it, and you're included. And I think that's what I got out of it at the end of the day. Yes, the content was very difficult, was very emotionally, all over the place, because I was in the moment. I was feeling what she was saying. And yeah, I was kind of lost in thought for a little bit on that content, for that segment. I mean, all in all, to those of you who watch the show, just know that we're always going to push the envelope just enough to get your attention, but never enough to create any uneasiness or any kind of environment where you feel like, no, this is just too harsh. So we make sure that we're very respectful about the conversations we have. We make sure that we speak to the individuals that we're going to interview beforehand, let them know what they're okay or not okay with. and always put their safety and their feelings into consideration first, because we really want to make this an environment where you can come in and participate. So yeah, the Hat Man was a very intriguing character. The interview was amazing. Um, Once again, Sam, thank you so much. We really do appreciate the time that you put in to discuss and tell your story. And to those of you out there, we can't wait to see what you're going to share with us. So moving on, I want to talk about a video I posted today, Sunday, Father's Day, June 16th, which is Tartaria, right? Basically, this was a idea of mine because TikTok and other social media platforms, they've been posting these stories. So I started doing some digging and realized that this was part of a Reddit sub that was posted many years ago. And it kind of plays into this idea that, how can I word this in a way that makes sense? All right, so it plays into this idea that these guys are imagining this world that once existed, or this continent that once existed, that was a race of giants, and essentially they help other civilizations and cultures to create these structures, these buildings, to teach them craftsmanship, carpentry, the works, masonry, and it's a whole lot that goes into this story. So much so that when you listen to the Reddits and reading them and you're going through them, it's like a lot of thought and a lot of passion and a lot of collective minds went through this. And I was like, wait a minute, doesn't make sense. We have pyramids that are built, and to this day, there's no definitive answer as to how these things were erected, right? There are ancient Sumerian tablets that have a depiction of a giant with a long beard called the Anunnaki, right? And they're holding a lion as if it was a pup, right? You have old told tales of Jack and the Beanstalk, the Cyclops in Greek mythology, and I said, wait, there might be a sliver of truth here, right? So I did some digging and I kind of did an AI special, I called it. It's like a 2.5 minute segment where we talk about the giants and how it is a possibility that maybe we're just ignoring the idea, we're not accepting the idea that they could have existed. We do have proven cases of people who are abnormally tall, and of course this is due by it's proven by medicine that they have issues with their pituitary gland, and their hormones kind of secrete this growth hormone, and they just grow exponentially larger than most people. It does come with side effects where their bodies cannot tolerate certain movements after a while. But all in all, when you start looking at other stuff, there's tons of newspaper clippings of giant bones found in different states and countries. There are rumors that the Smithsonian was hiding a lot of these things that were discovered and never exposed it again. And if you think about it from a biblical standpoint, the Nephilim was a race of giants when they came in, as fallen angels, and they breeded, and you had the Nephilim. So there's a lot of stories that fall into this realm. And then there's the Hermetic text, right? Or the Gnostic text, right? Like the Book of Enoch, and you have another book, right? And it's called the Book of the Giants. And it kind of this it's depicting these giants, right? So there's a lot of room for speculation, but there's also room to imagine this and kind of say, hey, you know what? We've made sense out of lesser things, so why not give it a try and see how we can piece this together, right? So that's kind of how I came up with this idea. Like, think for yourself. Our slogan is, discuss the unknown, discover your truths. And it was one of those recurring themes that kept hitting me. There's a lot of things that we've been educated on that depict giant people, yet we're not allowed to believe or embrace that ideology. right? That it is possible that we were in coexistence with them, However, they're always portrayed as these giant beings that eat humans, right? So it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd, and just thinking about it, it's like, why is it that everything has to result in something bad? What if they were so advanced and big that at some point, they had to disappear, and of course, you have the Great Flood. The Great Flood's real purpose was to eliminate not just sinful people who lost their faith, but to eliminate the Nephilim, which were giants, right? Outside of that, demigods and gods and superhuman individuals in the mythos of Greek mythology and Roman mythology, have these same kind of similarities, and that's a conundrum, so I figured I'd share that with you guys. Of course, we released Little Jimmy's Terrifying Adventures, and it was a great turnaround for the story. It's about 3 more episodes left for this mini-series. These are 1-minute shorts. My hope is that you provide feedback and let me know if you like them or not. But let's see where it goes with Little Jimmy. We're 3 episodes away. And yeah, things were good in episode 7. So my key takeaways for the cryptid section was that El Coco was a very intriguing creature that spurred off new legends, a new scary monster. The Hat Man is a very psychological, fear-inducing entity that we can't really pinpoint what it is. However, we know it's there, right? And people have testified about it and shared their experiences with us. So, as far as the interview goes, I thought it was a success. I think there's going to be more to come, more tales, more stories, more ideas to be shared. So I think that was great. And then when it comes down to Tartaria, it's sometimes the answers are in front of you and you might not just want to accept it, right? That's my thought on that. We've seen it in museums and in books and in newspaper clippings, and sometimes we just push it to the side. But the main headline is what I want to talk about next, and that was interesting. Total Control, right? There's been a lot of talk about mind control experiments and things of that nature, right? That results in people either obtaining this newfound ability through the rigors of being put in labs and testing. And then you have those who put themselves out there and end up losing a lot more than what they intended to gain. But the point that I was trying to get across is, historically, there are cultures that are ruled by individuals, and those individuals ultimately want to make sure they have overall influence and power and control over a society. And that's time and time again has been proven to happen, and it always results in failure, either in a rebellion taking over, some great war, or some catastrophic event. But in this case, it was interesting because it had to do a lot with the Russians and the Americans going at war, early 60s, 70s, so MK Ultra was a thing. And basically, it was just a way to see if people had the ability to use telekinetic powers to figure out what another person was thinking and doing. And then that gave birth to telekinesis, the ability to move objects with your mind. And then you have what they call empaths, people that have the ability to see beyond what we call the spectrum that we know, right? They can feel aura, energy, spirits, those kind of things. There are tons of movies about this. There's a lot of documentaries that are discussed about these kind of things. Some people perceive it more serious than others. However, I'm a believer that there are times where desperate situations, this, calls for desperate measures, and this was one of those cases, right? Sometimes people take big chances, and for the greater good of society, they go and do extreme things. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but sometimes you're put into a corner where the right thing to do sometimes is not the best thing, right? But wouldn't it be cool if you can use some of this telekinetic power to levitate, to go places, to go to the astral plane, or to speak to another multi-dimensional being just through thought? It's always intriguing, right? Because I look at things from the grandiose mindset, you know, because that's what I kind of grew up into. Anything is possible, anything that can be imagined can be created. So the possibilities are endless when it comes to those kind of things. All in all, I thought it was a great show. I thought participation has grown a lot from the individuals. People are becoming more open to discuss um, these stories and their experiences. I think that because of it, we're starting to gain some traction, and we're starting to understand the population that's watching us. Right? We want to make sure that when you watch the show, you're looking forward to it. I think of it as a kid in the 1980s where every Sunday at a certain time, hey, we got to be home because we want to watch the show. That's what we want to create, or even if you're not at home, because we have cell phones and all kinds of technologies, we have the capability to draw you in and making an inviting, entertaining, okay, and engaging show where we can put you to think about all these wonderful mysteries that the world has to show. So that's pretty much my thoughts on episode 7. With that being said, I have one short to present to you today, and I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching Rocking Out with J Rock. And remember, every Sunday at 5 p.m., Distorted Realities live stream. And starting in 2 weeks, we'll start the Friday night podcast where we get on a talk conversation about a specific subject for an hour or so. And we can get callers involved, whether it's to give a shout out or to tell something that intrigued them about what we spoke about, or for them to give their opinion. I think it's going to be great overall. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk again. J Rock signing out, and see you on Sunday.
Captain, this is Jim. I found the cave on the other side of the base. Over. Permission to explore. Over.
Permission granted, Jim. Be safe out there.
Captain, do you see this on the radar? This place is massive. Why is there a ship here? Captain, do you read? Over. Looks like my comms are down. Oh my god, Captain, come in!